Hey, welcome back to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. And by the way, I say welcome back because if this is your first time, we've been waiting on you. This is where you belong because this is the podcast that adds value to leaders who multiply value to others. That's you, that's me, that's us. My name is Mark Cole, and this week I am joined by one of my newfound favorites. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a leadership coach, he's a filmmaker. He absolutely is a crowd shaker. His name is Ryan Leak. Ryan was recently a featured speaker at our recent IMC, which is International Maxwell Conference event. We hosted in Orlando. We had 3,100 people. And I was telling Ryan right before we went live today that the audience could not get enough of him. So much so that Ryan will be joining us again on October the 6th for an event we call around here called Live to Lead. He and Kendra Scott, Marcus Buckingham, and of course the one and only John Maxwell will come together to make a difference in your life and in the life of those you lead. Now, Ryan has helped countless leaders and businesses reframe their relationships to failure, and in his most recent book, Leveling Up, Ryan asked 12 questions that help leaders evaluate personal and professional development. But guys, before I let you hear Ryan, let me tell you what John Maxwell says, because I was sitting on a seat in a huge auditorium in Odessa, Texas, of all places. I've had friends, we have mutual friends. We were talking about that Ryan beforehand. I've got all these people, you got to hear Ryan Leak, got to hear Ryan Leak. Well, John Maxwell and I were sitting on the seats in a huge auditorium, and we were riveted by the speaker in front of us, and it was none other than Ryan Leak. John Maxwell leaned over to me and he said, I wish everyone would connect with audiences like Ryan Leak. And I know that's going to happen in the podcast. It happens in events like Live to Lead. But you need to get to know Ryan, and before I even go any further, you need to, while I am finishing up my introduction, you need to go to ryanleak.com and you need to check my friend, your friend, out. Now, those that are listening, if you want to download our bonus resource today for this episode, or if you want to watch this episode on YouTube, you can find all of these resources and anything we mentioned today at maxwellpodcast.com/leveling up. Ryan, no pressure, dude. I just gave you the best introduction of anybody I've ever introduced on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Welcome, buddy.
Oh, man, it is an absolute privilege to be with you guys. You and your team have been so very kind to me, and was incredibly impressed with your IMC event. It was unbelievable. I get to do, 100, 120 events a year, and I brought some friends with me to the Maxwell Leadership event, and we all just went like, dude, this is not normal. And so incredibly appreciative to get to have a conversation with you guys today.
Yeah, well, thanks. And Ryan is one of those guys, podcast family, that you just know that you want to connect your wagon to him. And I was telling Ryan, we're talking about, man, what are things we can do together? We've enjoyed our few times that we've got to do some stuff together, including this podcast. And I just went, Ryan, the great partners are the partners that don't need each other, but when they get together, exponential things happen. And so Ryan is someone, podcast family, you need to not watch to see what's going to happen. Go ahead and hook up because it's happening. My friend, it is happening. So, hey, let's dig into, I do want to dig into your new book, Leveling Up, because I've now heard you talk on chasing failure, and it's one of the best talks I've heard on this subject matter. But before we do go to Leveling Up today in the podcast, I do want to just camp out for a minute on chasing failure.
Sure.
Talk to me about your journey and how that brought you to become a scholar of failure. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, man. You're a scholar on failure.
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about what led to your great insight on failure.
Yeah. I grew up believing that failure is not an option until I started meeting successful people and realized, well, they've all failed. So apparently it's an option. And my wife and I, we got to go on a couple of different TV shows because she told a friend that she thought it would be cool to get engaged and married on the same day. I had no idea what that meant. So I guessed and began planning a wedding behind her back over the course of 2 years. And so June 2013, I get down on one knee. I say, Amanda, will you marry me? She says, yes. I said, just kidding. Will you marry me today? Open up a lounge room door, about 85 of our family and friends standing in there with the sign that says, today. We were engaged for a good 11 hours, made a documentary about it. It went viral. And so we get on a couple of these different TV shows, on the Queen Latifah show. And my wife surprises me by getting me connected with Kobe Bryant. And I absolutely lost my mind. And I played ball in college. And so huge NBA fan, huge Lakers, Kobe fan. And so I get an opportunity 3 months from the recording of the Queen Latifah show to meet Kobe Bryant. And so I'm like, man, if I'm getting ready to meet Kobe, I need to be getting ready to get in the league. And so there was this, well, Ryan, you're 6'3", you play ball in college, but there are levels to this thing. And so can you really, make an NBA squad? Can you make a G League squad? And so for me, I just thought, man, you know what? I probably can't. So why don't I just hang that up and just go meet Kobe and be a normal person? But then I thought, man, here we are doing the thing that leaders do all the time, which is talk themselves out of their best ideas. And this was the day I said, you know what? Why don't I talk myself into being brave today? And so that day I started a second documentary called Chasing Failure, where I said, man, what if I get in the ring with failure? Let it give me its best shot. I'll give it my best shot. And let's just see what happens. And so I reached out to about 5 NBA teams and just said, hey, would you let a complete stranger work out for your basketball team? I'll probably fail, but what if I don't? There's only one way for us to find out, and that's for you to let me try. I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, and looking for failure. Sincerely, Ryan Lee. It's like, what do we have to lose? It's like we just think like you can't do that, and there's all of these rules and expectations that are put on us that I just love to stop every now and then and go, who's making the rules of your life? Who's making the rules of your leadership? Who's governing this? Sometimes it feels like we've got this middle school principal that's following us around, telling us what we can and can't do, but they're really self-imposed rules. And so I said, if they put their emails on the internet, they must want to get emails from somebody. So why not me? And the first 4 teams said no. The 5th team said, yeah, we'll give you a shot. And that was the Phoenix Suns. So I go to Phoenix and I try out for an NBA team. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, and I failed at a very, very high level. But what I realized when I got there was, wait a second, how in the world did I get here? There's so many rooms that I could be in at this point, but as I'm failing this tryout, I realized that chasing failure took me further than chasing success ever did, because chasing failure led me to an NBA practice court. And I had been in a lot of rooms up to that point in my life, but never an NBA practice court. And so that just emboldened me to try things. And so now you talk 8 years later, that tryout was about 8 years ago. Dude, we're just constantly trying things. You and I, before this podcast, we're going, we don't know what we're doing on X, but guess what? We're going to give it our best shot.
That's exactly right.
We're going to research. How are we going to grow our coaches? How are we going to go from 48,000 coaches to 75,000 coaches? It's like, we don't actually know the answer to that question. But guess what we are committed to doing? Figuring it out. And most leaders are afraid to try things.
Yeah.
And so I think you can really stand out amongst the crowd when you're just say, hey, I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to take those lessons. I'm willing to go get those lessons first so you can come after me second and learn from my mistakes. I'm willing to do that. But when you're the first one to do it, you get something that the second doesn't, which is grit. And so I think the more and more that I work with successful people all around the world, what they will tell you that they will never post is, I promise you, they all use the same phrase. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't know how we're going to take this company public. I don't know. Like, that's the secret sauce. I'm going, I know, me neither. Welcome to the club. And so there is this pressure that I think leaders feel like I have to have all the answers, but dude, the best leaders in the world don't have the answers. And so I have this, what I would call a spirit of chasing failure, and have been on this journey for a long time of going, hey, let's learn as much as we possibly can from failure so that we can indeed succeed. But if we're afraid to fail, if we're waiting for things to be perfect, we will never move forward in our leadership.
You know what's interesting? So one, podcast audience, viewers. By the way, if you're not viewing, you need to jump on because Ryan's a good-looking dude right here. You're missing it if you're just listening and not jumping on YouTube. But Ryan, you said something right there that I don't want any of our podcast family to miss. You said when you are the first to try something, you get something that the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth don't get, and that is you get grit. And that statement right there, cut the podcast off and go do what you've been thinking about doing, but you're waiting for somebody else to try it because you want the grit, because the grit will cause you to go farther, further, and longer than the next guy, the next guy, the next gal, the next gal. So let's go, those of you that are thinking about doing something. Hey, you talk about this chasing failure concept, and you illustrate it on the journey of personal success so well. One things that we say on this podcast often, John's talked a little bit about it, is business leaders look at failure the same way they look at finances. They want a return on failure. We want a return on investment. We want a return on our time. We teach and have taught on this podcast that business leaders also get a return on failure. Talk to me about how failure is the source of leadership strength.
You know, I think that there is something powerful about a mindset that is okay with failure. I often say the most important conversation you're going to have all week is the conversation that you have with yourself. And what you tell yourself is so vitally important for your growth. And so some people can sort of wallow in their failures. They can start telling themselves a very negative story about what they've done. But I think it's important that a person understands that failure is an event. It's not an identity. Some people want to wear their failures instead of just experiencing their failures. It's not who you are. It's something that happened. It's not a somebody. And sometimes we make that trip of going, man, I'm a failure. No, you failed. There is a massive difference. And so I think for a leader, whenever they drop a ball, they have to immediately have the correct conversation with themselves, because they could say, man, I've made so many mistakes. I've destroyed it all. Well, did you destroy it? Or do you have the mindset of, I'm rebuilding? I'm rebuilding it all. I'm already making my comeback. I'm going to make sure that I took great notes on the mistakes that I made. I'm not saying you didn't make any mistakes. I'm just saying you need new language for your leadership. You need new language for how you're going to start talking to yourself if you're going to be the kind of person that moves forward. The best thing that I've learned from John Maxwell is simply perspective. His perspective on leadership and situations and people. What impresses me the most about John is the amount of people that other people have deemed failures. He's looked at and said, I see potential. So I'm going to invest in that person. I'm going to show up for that person. And let's see what we can get out of them. What is that? It's just a mindset. That's all it is. It doesn't change what somebody did. It doesn't change even who someone is. But it does change their mindset of going, I want to be the kind of leader that says, you know what, this is going to be a strength of mine in managing my failures, but then managing other people's failures is where it really gets very, very, we talk about exponential impact. When you're able to look at somebody else's failures and show up for them and give them the right language to have, I think you're stepping into a really great leadership space.
You know, what I love about you and John is your ability to span different, we call them streams of influence or different domains of influence. And so I mean, you write, you speak, you coach, you consult, you do films, you make films. And by the way, I said this earlier, but if you want to see more about what all Ryan's doing, go to ryanleak.com because you will be impacted just by visiting the site. But Ryan, you've done that much like John. John's speaker, writer, communicator, consultant, coach. He's done all these things, And somehow you two have figured out how to create a thread of influence, impact, of messaging that connects all of those domains or all of those sphere of influences. Talk to us. We've got podcast listeners that come from all those different domains. How did you create a thread that connected all that you do?
What a great question. I believe something that I learned a couple of years ago. I was at a conference. I was listening to a speaker that I didn't think was very good. I actually thought it was boring. I didn't just think it wasn't very good. I actually thought it was very bad, if I'm being honest. But yet there were people in the lobby that were going, that was the best speaker I've ever heard in my life. And I went, we need to get your ears checked. What is happening? Like, how in the world could you think that was? I'm like, you just may not listen to a lot of speakers. I don't know what it is. But I realized something that day. Everybody is somebody's cup of tea. Everybody is somebody's cup of tea. And what it allowed me to do was to encourage anybody to say, hey, be yourself everywhere. And you might be afraid to be yourself. You may be tempted to be more like John. You may be tempted to be like the person you read about. You may be tempted to be like somebody you follow on social media. I encourage people to be themselves, because what people can sense, regardless of the room that you're in, whether we're talking professional sports, C-suite executives, healthcare, finance, political sphere, you name it. What all of those people have in common is they can smell a phony coming a mile away. And when you can genuinely just be yourself, there is something powerful about that people go, I trust this person. People trust John. When he walks through, it's like, John's going to be John. John's not trying to be Tim. He's not trying to be Mark. He's not trying to be Ryan. He's just John.
Yep.
So for me, it took me a while to get comfortable in my own skin, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to be myself everywhere. It was a journey, but I think that allowed me to just be authentic everywhere I go. I just did a talk this past week for a good friend of ours, Conway Edwards. This was the first time I was speaking for his organization. And so I'm thinking, all right, man, chasing failure. Here we go. He's like, nah, I don't want you to speak on chasing failure. Okay, we can move on to my next book, Leveling Up. He's like, nope. I'm like, well, what about one of my old books, Unoffendable? Like, this is my first time in front of your audience of 12,000 people. And he said, nope, I want you to talk on parenting. Conway, why, can we talk about this? He goes, no, I think he'd be excellent at it. And he's Jamaican, right? So he's got his Jamaican accent. He's going, I think he'd be great at it. I'm like, Conway, dude, there's so many other things that I have expertise on that I would love to share with this rather large audience. But there's something powerful about talking about your weakness.
Yeah.
To be able to stand before an audience and go, hey, I'm not here to give you parenting expert advice. I've got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, which means I'm at about a halfway point of their adolescence for my 8-year-old. So, hey, I'm not here to be the expert, but I'm going to tell you what I'm learning as a parent right now. And you'd be surprised how well a message like that is received, where it's not a, hey, I'm this know-it-all and you all need to listen to me. It's more of a, I'm one of you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to raise 2 men of God that honor the people in their life, that do business the right way, that treat people the right way, that treat women the right way, that operate their finances with integrity. All these are things that I'm consistently navigating versus, hey, let me give you 3 tips on how to be a better parent because I'm amazing. So what it does is it allows me as a leader to step into a room to go, let me first ask questions and let me empathize with people in the room to say, hey, I do have a vast variety of experiences with global leaders. However, it does not make me a know-it-all. And so I've found that when you ask questions, first, it puts people in, because people can kind of have their armor up with who's this guy? Who does he think he is? But when there's a genuine, hey, I'm really trying to get to know you. I'm not just rinse and repeat. I'm not just going to do the last talk that I did before. No, I want to know about your audience, and I want to know what they're struggling with, and I want to know what you're struggling with, and I want to make sure that I'm able to add value to what's happening in this room, and I'm not going to assume this room is just like the last one. So I think that is the thread that is going to be the same everywhere. Like, Ryan's going to be human when he walks in the room, whether it's a boardroom or a locker room. I'm coming in with my full humanity, not my, hey, hi, I'm Ryan and I'm an expert and you all should listen to me.
You know what I love about and I'm going to stay with chasing failure. One more question, and then I promise you I want to move to leveling up. But one of the things I love about your story is you show chasing failure really could be also chasing opportunity. What you did with Kobe, what you did with your wife, all of us want to sense and seize an opportunity like Ryan Leake. Every one of us. Just listen to Ryan. He's going to make you find what could be and probably should be and probably will be, to be honest with you, failure. He sees it through a lens of opportunity. But your message is much deeper than that, Ryan, because also there is a reoccurring theme in all of your chasing failure that is about resilience. And before we leave chasing failure, you're brilliant in your resiliency. And I'm telling you, I work with corporations all around the globe. I work with leaders right now post-COVID that are dealing with the fact that people are not resilient anymore. So before we leave chasing failure, how do we turn adversity into a transformational force by allowing resiliency to drive the leader's day?
I think that was very well said. Resilience is absolutely required for the future. There is no version of our future that does not require resilience. There's always going to be a setback. The world is constantly changing. Are you adapting with those changes or simply getting mad that it changed? You can't do both. You need energy to do one or the other. And so I've just decided as a leader, I'm moving forward. The good old days are gone. 2019 isn't coming. People love the glory days, the BC days before COVID. They're gone. And so at some point, we have to move on. There are economists that are predicting a global depression in 2030. Election season is around the corner here in America. All of these things can shake somebody's foundation. But I think the most important piece about resilience isn't just having it, but planning it. I've already planned on being resilient in an election year, regardless of how an election goes.
Excellent,
I've already planned on what my mindset's going to be in the future, because I'm not going to be caught off guard by people being mad at each other in an organization. Like, some people allow chaos to take them by surprise, and they're like, oh my gosh. And so now you're being a reactive leader. So there's a fire. Oh, let's go get the water hose. No, proactive leader. Hey, let's make sure we've got hoses everywhere. Hey, let's make sure that people are fireproof, that people are ready for things to burn. You want to know why? Because that's called life. And that's just how the world works. And so I plan on being resilient because I know there are going to be setbacks. Yes, some people say that another pandemic is coming, which means as a person that does live events, that could change things for me. I'm not going to be surprised by that. I'm simply going to be prepared for it. When you're prepared for chaos, you don't have to be scared of chaos. So for us, we're just prepared. We are literally planning resilience for the future. And it's very important as a leader that we continue to be the adult in the room, because kids are going to freak out whenever there's chaos. But the leader has to be the adult in the room that says, hey, we're going to be okay. Sometimes we're going to take some hits, but we have to continue to get back up. There will be budget cuts. There will be times where a staff member tells you they're there for life and then they leave the next week. Prepare for it now. Prepare for people to lie. Prepare for people to steal. These things happen, but I've already made up my mind what kind of leader I'm going to be in the future before it happens.
Hello, this is John C. Maxwell. I've been teaching leadership for over 40 years. We're gathering in Atlanta for our 10th Live to Lead Leadership Conference Friday, October the 6th. And I want to personally invite you to join us. Live to Lead is about empowering you to live out leadership, not just learn it. World-class leaders, Kendra Scott and Marcus Buckingham and Ryan Leake, will be joining me to impart wisdom, inspire change, and to help you lead more effectively. Hey, bring your team. Groups of 10 or more receive a significant discount. So let's grow together, because leadership isn't a solo journey. It's best experienced in community with others. Visit livetolead.com today, and let's make leadership a lived experience.
Gosh, you've got to come back, Ryan, because I want to dig into this, because here's the big takeaway, podcast family. So many of us wait until a rearview mirror to deem whether somebody is resilient or not. Oh, that person's resilient. You know why? Because they stuck it out. Ryan just said, no. Resilience is not a rearview mirror thing. It is a windshield thing. I am resilient, therefore I prepare. Resilience is proactive, not reactive. I want to stay there, but I got to get to leveling up, okay? So you're just going to have to come
Whatever
back, buddy.
you want to do. Whatever you want to do
gotta
today, man.
come
I'm
back.
here to serve you guys.
No, because I do. This leveling up message that you've got is something that's got to get out, and I'm passionate about it. Because in this, you explore on 12 questions that will help us evaluate our personal and professional development. And so the first thing that I want to do is we kind of transition from this chasing failure, which is brilliant, to leveling up, is I want to explore how fears and doubts kind of impact this journey and actually serve as a tension alongside aspirations. So talk to us a little bit about how do we use fears and doubts as a tension to our aspirations?
You know, there is if you ask somebody what their dream is, what their goal is, what they're trying to accomplish over the next year, they may be able to articulate that very well. If you begin to then say, all right, well, what do you think are some of the hurdles that will keep you from doing that? A lot of it's just going to come down to confidence, because they just have so many doubts about their abilities, maybe doubts about who's going to support them. It's one thing for me to have an idea. It's another thing for me to have other people that rally around it. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. Great. It's half the battle. Anybody going to listen to that podcast?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get to a place where you have the aspiration. I want to write that book. But then you have doubts of, am I going to be able to sell a book? Am I going to be able to market a book? Is this a good idea? Did somebody already write a similar book that's way more popular than me? And so sometimes our doubts can get really, really loud. And so what I always encourage leaders with is to say, hey, you got to ask yourself, whose voice is the loudest in your head right now? And what needs to be turned down and what needs to be turned up? Because the louder your doubts, the louder your fears, well, the more you're just going to do nothing. And you're going to simply settle for the status quo. And then you'll be surprised when people don't want to get on board with the old because you were too afraid to try the new. And so there is this interesting tension that I think leaders often have with going, at what point do I step out and try something new? And I would say yesterday.
Yeah.
That's when you should have tried something new. So guess what? You got an opportunity to do it today. Part of my journey with fear and doubt is interesting. I have so many of them. They haunt me. But I have developed so many habits that I don't have enough time to feed them. So I have so many doubts about my abilities, so many fears of what if this doesn't go well. I get nervous before every speaking engagement. But the funny thing is before my fears and doubts can overwhelm me, here's what I hear. Coming to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, is Ryan Lee. It's too late. I gotta go. What am I gonna do? Run? I'm not gonna run away. It's like, but now I gotta go. And we just gotta go see. I could fall flat on my face. They could think this isn't funny. They could think this isn't interesting. They can think, well, I've already heard that already. I mean, dude, full transparency. Even speaking for the Maxwell event, I'm going, dude, I wrote Chasing Failure, but John Maxwell wrote Failing Forward. It's sold God knows how many more copies than mine. This audience has already heard this message. This is, and I just start spiraling of going, I don't even know why they're having me. And the next thing you know, they're like, coming to the stage, Ryan Lee. Oh, crap. Hey guys, I'm so glad to be here. And I don't have time because I'm out here now. And so I think I've gotten so busy doing that it's too late.
Yeah.
So I can have the fears and have the doubts, but my habits have outweighed any of those doubts and those fears. And then you throw work ethic in there of going, hey, I'm trying to get better as a communicator every single day. I'm trying to get better as a writer every single day and trying to stay sharp and trying to give my absolute best to add value to people. And so when you're doing those things and you're consistently doing, it's not that you're impervious to fears and doubts. I have them every day. I'm just a little busy that I don't give them too much time.
On that same stage that we're talking about at IMC recently, and I'm going to let you find another way to see Ryan coming up in October, so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But James Clear, Atomic Habits, was on that stage. Yeah. John Maxwell's on that stage, and I watched Ryan capture the audience in a way. Everybody captured the audience, so this is not a comparison. I watched you capture it with failure, your response / habits to failure, and I watched you capture the audience in a way that's very unique to you. And I think it's because of what you're saying about leveling up. I think it's about how are you putting into place your personal professional development, because those things doesn't just happen. Of the 12 questions that you talk about in these books, what do you find as the question that's the greatest or the most difficult for leaders to embrace? And then how would you coach us to embrace that one?
Great question. I would say, what's it like to be on the other side of me?
Oh, yeah.
I would say probably has had the greatest impact in our executive coaching practice, working with leaders, athletes, what's it like to be on the other side of me is something that I just don't think enough leaders ask that question. Because when you work with teams of leaders, you actually know the answer to that question. But then you realize the leader just isn't asking that. So you know how that team is experiencing that leader. But what I've often found is that leader doesn't know about that experience. They assume the experience is good. I was talking with a leader the other day, and they were talking about an insufficiency with another leader. And they said, I always have to ask the question, is it wickedness or weakness? And I thought about that. Like, is this a leader that is intentionally trying to create a bad experience for their leaders or for their team? Or is this a leader that's just a weakness? It's just a blind spot. They just can't see it. So I found that most leaders don't have a high level of self-awareness in how other people experience their vision. I can't tell you how many leaders that we both work with that believe their vision is crystal clear. It's muddy. It's blurry. So you want people to do what now? You want your customers to, I was talking with a client 2 days ago. I said, hey, I'm on your website. I can't find your address. He's like, what do you mean? I go, your address actually isn't even on your website. He's like, our website's awesome. It is-ish. You don't have something very crude. People come to your building. They need to be able to get there, but like they can't unless they Google it. But on your actual website, you don't actually have your address, which is kind of key to your business. Most leaders just get so comfortable that they don't actually know how people are experiencing them, especially for the first time. And so how I coach people to do that is to really ask around, hey, what's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like to be led by me? What's it like to, some people love to receive bullet points. Just give me the bottom line. You don't got to give me the details. Some people crave details. They want the email to be extremely long. Well, most people kind of pick one or the other. So what's that like being on the other side of you? I love to make it personal. What's it like to be married to you?
Yeah.
What's it like to be on the other side of being parented by you? What's it like to be stuck in a group chat with you? Most people just have this like, I am me, I'm awesome. So it must be an awesome experience. It's not necessarily true. On the other side of you, it could be intimidating. On the other side of you, it could be inspiring. People could enjoy you. People could endure you. I know so many people that won't quit their job because they don't have any other options and they like health insurance. But I don't think that we should be those kinds of leaders. I think we should be the kinds of leaders that people go, I get to work for this person. And I think all of us can move towards that when we're just a little bit more considerate of how other people are experiencing us.
Man, I'll tell you what it's like being on the other side of a podcast microphone from you. I can tell you what it's like being on the other side of a microphone on a stage than you. I'm ready to go charge a troop, jump over a wall, and take some country. I don't know. I mean, I just want to go do something bigger because I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Hey, you're going to join us on October the 6th in Atlanta. For those of you that are in the podcast family, you're in the Atlanta area, or you want to take a trip to the hot Atlanta when it's getting a little cooler. October the 6th, Kendra Scott, Marcus Buckingham, John Maxwell, Ryan Leake are going to all be live on a stage. We have a virtual option as well. Ryan, what areas of leadership can our Live to Lead people expect to walk away with impacted and improved on this October 6th date?
Man, I can't wait to be at that event. And I think leaders are going to walk away with a healthy relationship with rejection and a healthy relationship with failure. It is what I would call not just a keynote. It's an experience. It's a journey of storytelling. You go on it with me. And I believe at the end of it, you're just going to see failure different. You're going to walk away from that experience going, the beauty of the message isn't even in just my delivery. The beauty of the message is, and why I love delivering it so much, is I love being able to take someone's past and reframe it to help them have a brighter future. So some people look at their failures and it was their darkest day. I like to go back there and go, was it? Are we sure that day was as dark as you think it was? What if we could go back and take notes from that to actually help us with where we're going in the future? So I love being able to turn somebody's worst day into one of their best days, because if you didn't have that moment, you wouldn't have the grit that you need for the future. So I'm very much looking forward to being at Live to Lead.
Yeah, you can go to livetolead.com to get tickets to the October 6th event. There's 300 sites worldwide. Make sure that you take advantage of hearing Ryan, John Maxwell, and others at livetolead.com. And let me make sure that you get this. You need to go get Chasing Failure and Leveling Up. You just need to buy both of them because you're going to read both of them, because one's going to lead to the other's going to lead to the other, because Ryan lives his message. He doesn't just talk it. He doesn't just communicate it well. He writes it well. He lives it well, and he will help you. Hey, if you go to the show notes, we'll put all the links there. We'll put ryanleak.com there. You'll have all of that there. You'll be able to get 10% off if you use ML Podcast as the code there, because we want you to be impacted by Ryan, not only at Live to Lead, but with his work, with his books, with his business, what he does. Ryan, I love to close with a listener comment, but before we do that, not really a hot seat because this is you, but a big impact moment from a leader that has impacted you to be who you are now? Who is it, and how did they impact you?
It was Rick Warren.
Yep.
I was with Rick about a year ago, and I asked him, I said, hey, when you see me, what do you see? What's something that I could work on? Just speak into my life a little bit. And he said, Ryan, I'm not worried about you and your success. He goes, a person like you will figure it out. You will figure out a way to be successful. He says, I think that will actually take care of itself. The one thing that won't take care of itself is your family.
Wow.
And he said, so what I have to tell guys like you, he goes, that are consistently flown around, you fly first class a lot, the red carpet is rolled out for people like yourself. He said, Ryan, that's actually not good for you.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I've never seen it that way. He goes, so what I encourage guys like you to do is whenever you get home, make sure you mow your own lawn, mop your own floor, change some diapers, because your family cannot compete with standing ovations.
Wow.
Your family cannot compete with light and fog and book signings, and they can't do that 100 times a year. And so you've got to come back into your space and normalize, do something normal. And so because of him, I have a practice of when I get home, I have turf in my backyard, so I can't mow my own lawn, but I can mop the floor. And even my wife and kids are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just coming back home. So that by far has had the most profound impact on me just as a human being, of just coming back to Normalville, because I just did an event a couple of days ago and the event planner says, is this your life? Like, that was riveting. Like, you do this like every couple of days? I'm like, it is and it isn't. Like you hold it. Our whole life is a vapor. Let's be honest. So I don't get too high with it, but the mopping the floor, coming back to my center, and being able to come home, Rick Warren had a massive impact on my life.
You know what's interesting, podcast family? We mostly have John on here, Ryan. We don't put a lot of guests on here. I just knew that we had to put you on here. But team, very rarely, podcast listeners, podcast viewers, do you have somebody that you can feel their heart on a podcast or in social media posts and things like that. What Ryan just did is defied those odds. He said, no, I can show you my heart. I can show you who I really am. Ryan, phenomenal job. You've added tremendous value today. Hey, I'm reminded of Bub. He listened to the podcast, Living Life Usefully. And this is what Bub said. And Bub, you're going to love today because of what your comment was. He said, I appreciate the wonderful conversation. I'm inspired especially because I work in an environment that does not encourage or does not reward a real sense of vulnerability. But listening to your conversations, podcast in, podcast out, inspire me to do more to add value and multiply my talents. Bub,
Awesome.
That's why we do what we do on this podcast, is because of you. And we do that because everyone deserves to be led well.